welcome and good afternoon to everyone. This is your time, teachers, your training time, and I always consider that a special time. So please feel free to relax, enjoy, because you'll be given some interesting information this afternoon. This webinar is entitled Get Ready for LanguageCert International ESOL C1 Practical Tips. It is the second of the two webinars. Last week we had the first one, B2, great success, a lot of interesting question, and our main speaker, Joanna Paolinelli, really got the audience involved, and it will happen today too, I'm sure. The focus of this event, as I said, is C1 level practical tips. These events are sponsored by LanguageCert and Macmillan Education, and I thank both of the organization for working on this and allowing lots of teachers to have this opportunity, because more and more teachers are asking for it. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Giuseppe Romagnoli, brand ambassador here in Italy for LanguageCert since 2018, since everything started, and I'll be moderating this event too. As I said, more and more teachers, students, and also workers, especially during COVID, are taking our exams, mainly for many reasons, but above all for the on-demand approach, the customer care approach, focus on the two papers, paper-based, computer-based, and online live proctoring, which allowed a lot of people to reach their dreams during these difficult times. We offer, just for those who don't know, we offer very briefly International ESOL exams A2, C2 main suite, ideal for state school teachers and students, recognized MUR, CELT, secure English language test for migration purposes, for work, study, and family, LTCG language cert test of classical Greek, one and only worldwide. We're very proud of this. It's the last qualification, just came out, ideal for our lovely Liceo Classici in Italy. ESPRO, a Spanish qualification, which should be approved by MUR, we hope by 2023. An opportunity for all of you. There's a lovely course on dyslexia in preparing for LanguageCert certification in partnership LanguageCert, Macmillan Education again, and Orizzonte Scuola. Available completely free for all of you on the Orizzonte Scuola platform, and I've just been told just before the conference that it will be ready for you all as from Monday. So jump on board and take advantage of this great opportunity. Now, I am happy to introduce you all to, first of all, my colleague Paola Giuliani, who is the BDM for Italy and Malta. Hi, Paola.
Thanks, Giuseppe. I'd like to welcome everyone to this great webinar. Joanna is a fantastic speaker, and I would like to thank Macmillan for making this possible. We started a fantastic relationship with Macmillan, last year, and I hope this will, continue for a very long time. So enjoy the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Paola. And Macmillan, the regional manager for Italy, Greece, Malta, and Cyprus, Casimir Cucella. Hi, Casimir. Would you like to say something to our teachers?
Yeah, I just want to thank LanguageCert for allowing us to be here, and we hope that people find this afternoon useful. So,
thank you so much, Casimir. And another colleague of yours, Romina Piferi, that should be here also. Hi, Romina.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you everyone for being here, and I'm sure it will be a fantastic session, so enjoy it.
Thank you, Romina. And some people will be in contact with you, we know that, after the event. Now, allow me to introduce our main speaker, Joanna Paolinelli. She's here with us today, and she was here last week with us. She's done a lot of work specifically on this, on the B2 and also the C1. We are so lucky to have the wonderful Joanna Paolinelli with us. She is a great colleague of mine, of us, and holds dear values we also believe in strongly here at LanguageCert, and I'm sure also Macmillan, about, for example, inclusion. So welcome, Joanna.
Thank you.
See you somewhere there. Good. Joanna, there's so much to say about you. Joanna has been involved in English teaching and training for over 20 years and is currently the Director of Economic Development and Innovations at the British School of Pisa and Academic Coordinator for ISLI, l'Associazione Italiana Scuole di Lingua. She has an MA in Developmental Psychology and Educational Psychology and is also a qualified Italian Dyslexia Association tutor. She is particularly interested in using her experience, technology, and new ideas to ensure that learning and teaching English are accessible to all. Her teaching combines digital technology and innovative methodologies in order to make the classroom a place where everyone can learn. She works with children who have special needs and travels all over Italy, especially from now on, even more, to train teachers in making education more inclusive, flexible, and I underline the word exciting. Yes. Joanna will now guide us through some practical tips. As I said before, get ready for LanguageCert International ESOL C1 exam. Joanna, over to you.
Thank
you. Enjoy, everyone.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Wonderful introduction. So thank you to LanguageCert and Macmillan Education for inviting me back. So today will be an interactive session. And during my presentation, I will be asking you to write on the chat box. So let's try it out. I see some of you have written already. So where are you joining from today then? Are you all in Italy, or is there anyone out of Italy here today? Can you write on the chat box? I bet you think I'm from Florence, Mariangela, Southern Italy, from Rome, the UK. Oh, excellent. So yes, Italy, Ancona. All right, super, all over. Now, for those who were at the webinar last week, can you write on the chat, does anyone remember where I am from? Was anyone there last, or perhaps you can hear from my accent where I am from. Yes, Isabella, yes, I'm from Scotland, yes. Has anyone been to Scotland before? I'm from Rome, don't know. Yes, you have, yes. Oh yes, Scotland is a very beautiful place, but so is Italy. And at the moment I live in Pisa, which is a beautiful place to live as well. All right, so let's get started then. Right, so today I will be giving you some tips for the C1 LanguageCert exam. Now, I will be giving you some practical tips and showing you some inclusive tools as well. There will be an activity for you to do today, so if you can have your phones ready, that would be great. So let's start. So I'll be starting first of all with some tips for the spoken exam, and then I will move on to the written exam, the listening and the reading and the writing parts, and then I will be giving you some preparation material to help you prepare your students. All right, so let's start with the speaking exam. The speaking exam is in 4 parts. We have some short questions on various topics. Then part 2, there are some role plays. So first of all, where the examiner starts, and then the candidate has to start the role play. There's a 2-way discussion in part 3, where they have to use a spidergram, and I'll be showing you what that is later on. And part 4 is a monologue. Oh, we've got someone from Sydney here today as well. Hello, Francesco. All right, so instead of like explaining part 1, I'm just going to show you a video of an example, just the first part, okay? So that way you can understand what it's all about.
This is the 1st of July 2019, and Lilla Andrei exam begins. Hello, my name is Kristina Kürti. Can you spell your family name for me?
Sure. A-N-D-R-N-E with an accent.
Thank you. And which country are you from?
Hungary.
Thank you. Now, part 1, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself and your ideas, all right? Okay. The first topic is education. Do you think individuals or the state should pay for university education, and why?
Wow, well, that's a hard question because, for example, in America, people should pay for their university educations, but in Hungary, well, I think both.
This is the 1st of July 2000.
Okay, so you've seen a little bit of part one. So they asked various topics. Now she was struggling a little bit in that with the first question. So I'm going to ask you to write in the chat box, what difficulties might students come up against in this first part of the exam? Any ideas? I don't know if you've prepared your students before, but maybe you would like to share with us some of the difficulties that they have at this first part of the exam. Lack of ideas, yes, vocabulary, emotions, yes, because I mean, it is difficult. They have to go into the exam room, they have the interlocutor and they're asked a question. It's difficult for them. Confidence, yes, lack of ideas, anxiety. All right, so lots of anxiety, yes. So how can we as teachers help them with this? So any ideas how we can help them with this? Even the idea that their mind goes blank and they don't know how to answer the question also. And sometimes the topic might be irrelevant to them. So any ideas of how we can help them? No? Daily practice, absolutely. Work on vocabulary, yes. Practice runs, telling some students some jokes, yes, absolutely. Giuseppina, keep calm, yes, keep calm, organize your ideas. Francesca, stay calm. Absolutely, yes. And obviously, the more that they practice, the better that they feel because they know what they're up against. Practice makes perfect, Emanuela, makes perfect, absolutely. All right, so one little tip that I give my students is to tell them to not be afraid to flip the question, because sometimes the question may be irrelevant. And at that point, they might actually, their mind may go blank. So I say, flip the question. So for example, can you tell me about the last time you wasted money on something? And the candidate says, well, I can't remember wasting money, to be honest, but I do remember spending a lot of money. Okay, so that can help them in that situation. And also playing for time can really help them. So for example, in a question like this, what are the advantages or disadvantages of spending money to children? The candidate can say, oh, that's a hard one. So even saying things like, oh, that's a hard question. Oh, good question. Or let me think about that. These little phrases can help them to get their thoughts in order. All right. So that's two little tips I've given you here. Now, part two is a role play. Now, I find this activity extremely interesting, especially to prepare students. I find, because I love to act, and I find the role play situations lovely, but not all students find them easy at the beginning. So I'm going to show you a little extract of this one.
Now, part two, we are going to role play some situations, and I want you to start or respond. Okay? The first situation is that I'm a stranger in your town. I start. Where can I go to find some really typical local entertainment?
Oh, wow. Well, definitely city center. You should watch out for egg painting, for example, because that's really Hungarian. Mm-hmm. And maybe museums, because mm-hmm. that way you can learn about the culture.
But you mentioned the city center. Where is it? I don't really know.
Okay, just wanted to give you a little example there. So what about in this situation? What difficulties might students come up against here then in role play situations? Any ideas? I really want to know your experience as well if you prepare students for this exam. Any ideas? Yes, how to interact, Mary, absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, some of the students doing this have never done role plays before. Maybe they've studied English more in academic at school, and they're not used to thinking on their feet in that way. Anything else? Do you think they might? Yes. Oh, ideas to answer questions, embarrassment about the possibilities. Yes, to remember things. Lack of imagination. Yes, a lot of students, because they're afraid of making mistakes, they do have a lack of imagination. Absolutely. Yes, the problem of interaction. Okay, but I mean, this is an exam that tests your ability to communicate in English, so it's important for them to be able to interact. And that's why I find this a really interesting activity. So any ideas to help them to prepare for the test? Yeah. Well, I'm just going to share my idea while you're thinking about it. All right. So role play, making conversation, pair what? Yes, there you go. Use past questions to prepare. Absolutely, Trisha. Yes. Well, I also like to, as someone said, do role playing. So, you know, having fun with the partner. So I get them, you know, to put, I say, let's put on our acting hat and really get them to get into the role where they're actually out, they're acting it out. Sometimes they perform it to the class. Yes. And that really does build up their confidence. Also, in some of these role plays, now you've got to pretend to be irritated or sympathetic. Sometimes you have to give advice. So they need to practice each of these positions using the right intonation and the right expressions. Now, I've found that these type of tasks really does help them with the listening part of the LanguageCert exam, because you know, they're using English in real context here in the role play in everyday situations. And by using the language, it does improve the English in general and helps them to improve listening. Absolutely. And also in this task, they've got a lot of freedom to express their English. Okay, so if they practice and learn lots of vocabulary, you know, it gives them more freedom to be able to communicate in English, as I've said. Yes, yes, I've seen the role in the chat box. Role playing is very awkward. Yeah, it is. It can be awkward, but the more that they practice it, the more that I find they actually find it fun. Okay. Yes, and again, practice the expressions by using their emotions. Okay, make them use the correct intonation. Okay, this can really help them a lot. All right, so I'm going to give you some examples. So, for example, this is an example. We're friends. I start. Thanks a million. I'm sure I would have failed this exam if it wasn't for you. And then the candidate has to answer. So in situations like this, you would think of ways to reply. So for example, you're welcome, no problem, or that's what friends are for. Another situation, we're neighbors and my dog keeps digging holes in your garden. You start, okay? So in this case, you know, you've got to use intonation. Oh, look, I've really had enough. Oh, it's really getting me down. Okay, so as I say, we're using authentic English and using real life situations. So the more they practice, the better they get at this task. Okay, so these are some, for example, when I say use some of the language, so not only the language to start and to finish the role play, but also the language needed to carry out the role play task in general. So for example, it could be a role play where they've got to arrange something. So giving them the language that they need, things like, what about going? Because very often, especially in Italy, they have difficulty with the language of arrangements and making suggestions. So if, for example, in the video, the girls said, you should very often. So giving them different expressions to use can really help them. All right, so part 3, exchanging information. Let's watch how this one starts here.
In this part, we are going to discuss something together. And here are some opinions about how public money should or should not be spent. Okay? Let's discuss what we feel about these things and decide which ones we most agree and disagree with.
Okay.
Okay? Take 20 seconds to think about what you want to say. Lilandri, please start.
Okay. I definitely do not agree with it would be better not to have public services at all, but let private individuals pay for their needs. So that is, I think, not good at all for anybody. So let's take public.
In this part, we are going to...
Okay, so I'm going to show you this actually, because they actually get a spidergram, which gives them the things that they've got to discuss. Now, the difference between the C1 and the B2 is in the C1, they really are comparing opinions on something more abstract, whereas in the B2, they were coming to an agreement on some specific information on a role play card. So as you can see, they have got to use more language to do with abstract ideas, all right? Now, this is also quite a difficult task that needs a lot of practice. So what do you think that the students might find difficult about a task? Can you write in the chat box? Now, there are, as I say, in all these tasks, in the speaking task, obviously brainstorming vocabulary is the most important thing. But does anyone have any ideas for this one? Agreeing, disagreeing, absolutely, absolutely, given those expressions. They may be nervous, they may, yes, Barbara, they may have poor specific idea of vocabulary. Thinking of balanced ideas, yeah, especially if there's something they don't really have an opinion on, Tricia, absolutely. And it also depends on the age. I mean, if it is like, you know, teenagers doing this, you know, although they have ideas, sometimes they find them difficult to express. Thinking of advantages and disadvantages, yes, absolutely. Thank you for all your feedback. I really appreciate it. Considering pros and cons of Manuela, yes, absolutely. Well, again, brainstorming the language, as we've said, suggesting, agreeing, disagreeing, absolutely, and then get them to practice it with their partners and not tell the students, don't agree on everything. You know, it's nice to like give them language. Well, actually, yes, I understand where you're coming from, but make them have like a conversation where they do give different ideas. And give them the language, as someone said in the chat box before, of discussion. So this is like a Padlet that I've created for the C1. So basically, you know, you give them the language to use for suggesting, giving your opinion, the hedging vocabulary that they need, disagreeing politely, you know, well, I understand your point, and agreeing and deciding also. Now, if you have your phones here, you can just, this is the QR code of that Padlet activity. So if you want, you can just use the QR code and put it on your phones. All right. Now, also, Giuseppe was talking, saying that, you know, I do work a lot with inclusion. So I use a lot of concept maps in general when I teach. And for example, this is a concept map for the language of probability, right? So give them different expressions to use. So I really like to show them the keyword got the percentage degree. And I say, okay, so what words can you use to show probability at 20%? So probably not. Or 50% could be, okay? So this is one of the ways. Don't worry about the QR code because the video will be there and you can, don't worry about the QR code. All right, so let me just go on from there to part 4, and this is the last part where they have to speak on a given topic, okay? Let's just watch the first part here.
4, you're going to talk on your own for about 2 minutes, and your topic is finding the time to do the things you want.
All right.
Okay. You now have 30 seconds to write some notes to help you.
Thank you.
So your topic is finding the time to do the things you want.
All right.
Lilandri, please start.
Okay. So, as you know, I'm a school student. I'm in high school, and school takes up a lot of time, especially learning. So, right next to school, I do have free time. So I'm not saying that it's so heavy that I only learn at home and never ever have free time. But when I do,
4.
Okay, all right. Yes, I'll go back to the QR code at the end. Okay, don't worry. All right, so now in this task, they have to speak for 2 minutes, as you can see. Now that is also a task that really does need preparing. So what difficulties do you think? Well, again, you know, the difficulties from before, like they may not, they may dry up. I mean, that's the biggest difficulty, that they maybe start and then they may dry up. So how can we help them with this task? Well, I have got a task for us to do. All right, so I hope this is going to work. Sometimes technology can let you down. So what I would like you to do is, I would like you to take your phones and scan this QR code. And if you don't have a scanner, I'm also going to send a link in the chat, all right? So you can click on the link, or you can also go on to www.mentimeter.com and put in the code. So this is an activity that I give my students, and I want to do it today with you in real time. So you have to think about some topics that could come up in this part of the test. Okay, so I hope that you're doing it. I hope you've got through, because I'm going to come out of the presentation and we'll see, I'll just see just so I can see if you've been able to answer. Hold on a second. just give me a second. Oh, you see, technology sometimes. No, I'm there. Yes, okay, you can see my screen. Yes, Giuseppe, can you see this? Oh, wonderful. So this is a wonderful task called maintain.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, so as they are writing, it all comes up on the screen, all right? So, and see, at the moment, hobbies is winning because it's the biggest, so it's the biggest word on the screen. It's between environment and hobbies, okay? Now, when I do this in class, it really does help motivation because they get all excited about it and they can't wait to find out what the winning topic will be, all right? So I think the winning topic today is environment, all right? So thank you so much for participating in this. Absolutely. Just let me go back into my PowerPoint. Hold on a second. All right, off we go, back into my PowerPoint. All right, so thank you so much for voting. So at this point, what would I do with them? So, I mean, if you can't do a Mentimeter, you can put it on the board, but that's just an idea. So what I would do is I would, at this point, I would get, before we actually start to talk about the environment, I would get them to go through some of the vocabulary, the vocabulary, brainstorm some of the things to do with the environment before we play the game, all right? Then I would give the whole group 20 seconds, I'll put them into groups and get each group 20 seconds to write down as many things about the topic, okay? So they would write them down because in the exam you have 20 seconds just to show them how little time 20 seconds actually is. Then one person would start to talk about the environment for 2 minutes. If she does finish it in 2 minutes, then she gets a point. If she or he dries up, then the first student to come in and finish the 2 minutes gets the point. And then that person starts the next topic, okay? So this is called, the game's called Just a Minute. You can find it on the internet, but I've put it into just 2 minutes because I really think it's important for students to learn how long 2 minutes actually is, because it has happened to me. They've talked for a minute and they think that's it, and you go like that to tell them continue, and sometimes they get, you know, obviously that they get really upset at that point. So I would suggest this game. And then for homework, you can get them to record themselves talking about the environment for 2 minutes. And then I always say, listen back to yourself, evaluate yourself, and listen to your mistakes. And then obviously they send the recording and I can give them some feedback. And now the follow-up, after they've had to speak for 2 minutes, they have to answer some follow-up questions on the same topic. So it would be, so for example, it would be on the environment here. Now, again, flipping the question and playing for time, obviously, is the way to go again. So for example, how has the wildlife population of your local area changed over the years? Well, I'm not sure specifically about my local area, but globally. So in that way, flipping the question again. And then I say to them, give as long an answer as possible when asked the follow-up question, because the longer that you speak for on that question, then the less chance you have of them asking you lots of other questions. Okay, so these are some little tips. Now, a final activity, right? I tried this out not so long ago. I think it's really important. Now on the LanguageCert website, you have this fact that you can download this PDF, and it's a criteria for what they are looking for, what the examiners are looking for. So I always get my students to read very, closely what they're being marked on. And as a final activity, I would get them to look at the video we've just seen. So we watched the video, okay, and each group would have the task of assessing a criteria. So for example, one group would assess task fulfillment and coherence. Another group would assess the vocabulary, all right? And then we would, at the end, we would discuss with the groups. So we would say why they've given them this mark. We would discuss the mistakes that were there, and that's a really good activity. And then once the class really gets used to doing this task, then I can actually get a student to be an interlocutor, and the other one is a candidate, and the class can then mark the students in the exact same way. So this is something that I've done in the class before, and it really does work. So the more practice, the better for the speaking part. All right, so let's look at some tips for listening and reading now. I'd like to just explain a little bit about just the parts before giving you some tips. So the first part are 6, you have to listen to some conversations, 6 unfinished conversations, and they have to find appropriate response. Now, again, in this specific listening task, the role play part of the speaking exam will help, because if they're used to practicing emotions, using the correct intonation, and they're used to practicing the language of agreement, then they can recognize the intonation or the words used to agree, disagree, and understand what indicates attitude. Okay, so that's how I think that the speaking can really help the other parts of the exam. In part 2, they have to listen to conversations, and then they have to choose the right multiple choice answer. Again, this is the question: what is the manager's attitude? So again, if they're used to listening to these sort of dialogues, if they're used to practicing, this is easier for them. All right, yes, and also this is another one in this task. For example, what do the speakers agree about? All right, so again, you know, here, if they're used to listening out for phrases indicating agreement, things like yes, you're right, absolutely, then they will be able to do this task more easily. Right, part 3 of the listening is more of just jotting down the correct information. All right, so you can write from 1 to 5 words, so it's more factual information. And then part 4 is your long discussion, and you have to choose the correct multiple choice. This is what students are more used to in what they do at school as a task. And now the reading parts, the first part of the reading is quite interesting for me because it's a true and false task where they have to read and then they have to determine which statements are true or false. And I find it quite an interesting task. Again, here, some of the text will use some idioms, so practice idioms. And what I get them to do usually in these tasks is to read read it quite quickly. And then I would get them to underline the keywords in the question and then go back and do the reading again before answering the question. This is how I handle this type of task. All right. So part 2, now in part 2, they have to choose the right response, okay, to fill in the gap. Now they actually have 2 sentences which are distractors in this task. So practice really does make perfect. You know, they have to get used to these distractors and knowing which ones to choose. And now we'll move on to part 3. Now in part 3, there are 4 texts, and they have to decide which text answers which question. All right, so again, I would get them to skim read the text A to D and then underline the questions and then go back to the text. In part 4, we have, now it's a long text and they have to actually write the answer. Now I find this task is interesting because the candidate can really demonstrate that they've understood the text and express themselves more freely because they have to write up to 5 words. Now, some general tips for both listening and reading. Now, remember, you're going to have to really work on the synonyms because in so many of these tasks, you have to look out for the keywords and the questions, and then you have to match them with words that are similar in the text and in the dialogues, right? Now, it does happen sometimes that you actually hear the exact word, but not very often. So you've got to get them to practice doing this. And also, it may not always be a synonym. It can sometimes be a phrase that indicates something, or it could be a negative phrase instead of the synonym. So an antonym it also could be. Now, I talk a lot about keywords. That's because I work a lot with dyslexic students, but working with keywords is something inclusive to all students. And for example, words of frequency and quantity are keywords to look for. So things like usually, always. And then we've got words which denote strength and relationship. So things like primarily, absolutely, mainly, okay? and the negatives, so to get them to really look at the negatives, won't, haven't, because these can also change, like the questions and also the answers. And remember that there are tips in every exercise, okay? So don't just, I say to my students, don't just pick an option because it contains a word you've heard or read. Absolutely not, okay? And if they're not sure, I always make them, you know, it's a bit like metacognition. They've got to really think about it and say, okay, so I've chosen this answer, right? Why do I think the other answer is incorrect? Okay, that way I can confirm the one that I've chosen is correct. And then why is it correct? Can I justify that it's correct? And if I can, then it probably is correct. But watch the timing, I always say, because if you get stuck on a question, sometimes it's better just to guess and move on than wait a long time on a question. All right, so I'd like to give you a little practical tip. This is my favorite exercise to use to improve listening and reading, but also a bit of writing. And I don't know if any of you have used it before, but it's called lyrics training. So what they do is they have to pick a song, they can pick their level of English. So now would be advanced to expert. And then they have to, the song starts and they have to fill in the gap of the words that they hear. So I think this is really interesting because it motivates the students, and you're working on listening, you're working on reading, and you're also working on writing. But also as a post task, I would actually get them to look at the lyrics, and I would get them to identify the meaning, the attitude of the songwriter. So this is a good task. And also things like watching TV series on Netflix and YouTube videos and podcasts. I always encourage my students to do these because I know it does motivate, especially the younger generation. All right, some tips for the writing part. Now, they have to do two parts. The first one is a more formal response, all right? And the second one can actually be, they could even be, have to write a narrative composition, a story, a personal letter, all right? So now, I always say that it's important to read the question carefully, right? Because sometimes when students get very anxious, they don't read the instructions properly. So I say, please read the task properly. That's the very first tip. And also to include everything that you've been asked to do. Now, I say plan your writing. Don't just start the exam and start writing. Plan it. So use a concept map. In class, I like to use a Padlet where we divide up the different parts. But in the exam, you know, just write down how you're going to split it up your writing before you start. And then obviously, in class, I would get them to brainstorm the vocabulary, as we've said. I encourage them to use a variety of structures. So if they're writing a story, we practice a lot of narrative tenses, life experiences, the present perfect, okay, wishes and desires, second conditional, regret, the famous regret, the third conditional. Now, regarding stories, this is what I like to do. They're called, I don't know if you've ever used them before, but using story cubes. This is me doing a digital online version of the task. But it's Rory story cubes, and they have all different types, murder, mystery stories, and lots of different types. And you roll the dice, and the students can create a story. And I like to get them to write stories using images. It's a very inclusive activities. And I use this, Mary, absolutely, yes, absolutely. And then what I like to do is, once they've written their story, they can use different tools to write up their story, which I'll show you. But also, I like to get the students to act out the story, okay? So, and this is a way of actually combining the writing and the speaking, because if they've written the story in reported speech, then it would then become a dialogue. You can transform it into actual conversations, and then using intonation again, helping with all parts of the exam. So, you can try. I like to transform a writing task into a speaking task, or vice versa. I also use story sandwiches to structure a story. It's important because a lot of students don't really know how to structure a story. So before we actually write the story, we would look at the story cubes, the images, brainstorm the vocabulary, and then we would structure it in a way where we look at the settings, the main characters, and these are little things, I call them a story sandwich. And different types of writing. So remember, if you're writing a more formal writing, to think about the style, the register, and contractions. So when it's formal, you're not going to tell the students they won't be using contractions. And also the format, how to open, if it's an email, how you can open it, how you can start off the email. And if it's an article, let's say, give it a really nice, catchy title, use questions, use exclamations. And if it's a report, make sure it is all divided properly. Here, if it's an essay, right? If it's an essay, you know, this is another, this is the hamburger this time. So go through the topic sentence or supporting sentence, give them the structure, okay? That can really, really help them with the writing tasks. All right, so, and also rereading it before submitting. Now, I do like to get them to read it. If they're doing it for homework, I will always say to them, please read it out, read it aloud, because sometimes if they read out their writing, they can actually hear the errors that they're making. And I say to them, you know, upgrade your vocabulary, you know, don't use big, but enormous, not small, but tiny. So get them to really concentrate on these things. Another tip that I'd like to give you is what I've used especially during the COVID years. I've given them a lot of video feedback, and you say, well, you know, I've taught so many students, how can I mark each one? What I usually do is I give them a writing task, and I would take the most frequent mistakes that students have made in the writing, put them into a document, and then I will just record, even on Zoom, where I share my screen and I go through and I give them the feedback, right? I think this is a really nice, interesting way to do marking. And also, you know, the whole idea of like, when you do have to write correct written homework, underlining or highlighting mistakes, you know, I do find that it does take away a lot of students' self-confidence and motivation. And again, if you highlight or underline something, it remains in your memory. I mean, that's why we do it very often. So I create a correction code with the class. That's one of the first things that we do. So we decide what we're going to use for if there's something, if it's a verb that's wrong, or if the subject's wrong, or if there's a missing a preposition, and we create a little correction code with the class. And then when I do the marking, you know, I can put the code in, and they can say, oh yes, that's what I've got to do. And when I do give the feedback in the video, I don't just give them the answer. I like them to think about it. Okay, I like to work on learning how to learn always. So they have to think about it, and that way they will remember the mistake and then how to correct it. I said before that we could make the writing interesting using different things. So I do sometimes do project work with them. So I get them to do a writing task together as a group. This is Book Creator, and here you can create your own audio digital books really easily. It's completely free, and I would really do suggest, and you can put in the audio as well. And doing this with a group, I mean, it not only improves their English, but it helps their ability, you know, it does improve their ability to plan, organize, and create. So it's a very inclusive activity. And also, one of my favorites, I think a lot of you have probably used it and seen it before, Genially. Now, you could actually use Genially and create, or the students can create interactive presentations for their writing. It really does increase motivation. And there's also some ready-made activities like escape rooms and things in Genially. And if you're interested, on YouTube, there's very good training videos for teachers. It's not difficult, and it really does bring some excitement into the lesson. Everyone knows that. Well, Giuseppe knows excitement is one of my favorite words to use, because excitement is motivation. All right, and another activity. Now, this is something that I thought of myself, and it has been very successful over the years. And lyrics writing, in order to increase their writing abilities. Now, what do you mean by lyrics writing? Well, first of all, I do it because I've found that it increases vocabulary and again, motivation, creativity, but it also increases phonological awareness, pronunciation, helps practice structures, of course. So for example, I took the song Volare, nel blu, dipinto di blu, I'm not going to sing anymore. And what we did was we took some words in the song, for example, blue, and we looked on the web, like different words that rhyme with blue, all right? And we did that for some of the words in English. And then we created some new lyrics to the original song. So we didn't translate it, we used some of the words, some of the ideas, and this is what we did. So I'm going to play it for you now, okay? Just a little bit, not the whole thing. Okay, that's it now. I'm not going to sing anymore because once I start, I don't stop. Anyway, this is the idea that I really did want to share with you. All right, so the last part is about preparation materials. Now, I have been using the Language Hub books from Macmillan because I find them, they're good books, but they've got lots of different types of practice. For example, the preparation and practice is an actual app, okay? And here there's a speaking section and the students can listen and they can record their voice like what I was saying before, and then they can listen to themselves afterwards, and it's really good for fluency. And also in each unit there is a cafe hub in the book, and this really does look at the authentic English, and it has videos where they have conversations. So this again can help with the speaking and also a lot of the listening parts, what I was saying before. And the book has also been mapped with the LanguageCert exam for C1 and B2. So for example, this is looking at the speaking task, and it's got different units that deal with part 1 of the speaking exam, all right? And for example, sorry, I've moved on too fast. And unit 3 and page 26. So you can actually go on and you can find the part in the Language Hub book that deals with different parts of the LanguageCert exam. So I've prepared some QR codes because also LanguageCert on their website has got they've got 4 practice papers for the C1 exam, and also the handbook and what I was talking about before, and the speaking, how the speaking is assessed. So here's some, these are QR codes that you can get the links for these. All right, well, I think I've come to an end now, just in time for some questions. Now we are going to unmute you as well. So if you have any questions, you can write them on the chat box, but you can actually speak to us as well, because it's lovely to have some feedback and some questions from you all. Giuseppe.
Hey, Joanna, that was fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Very energetic. Sorry?
Yeah, a lot of information for everybody.
There's definitely a lot of information, but the chat was definitely flowing, and I think everyone enjoyed the enthusiasm, the energy, your approach. I could see it. Great performance, great, yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do like to talk about things that I care about, you know, and preparation is you know, so important. And these exams also, I mean, it can change people's lives. So, you know, it's important to, you know, as teachers to understand how to prepare them.
It's a great opportunity. You've got to look at it that way. You know, it's a way of helping students to achieve their goals, their confidence, as you said, overcome their difficulties, look at the challenges in a different way. You spoke about a lot of things, you know, how to feel good also. And that word freedom, personally, I like this idea that a candidate is in a safe space and feels a certain space of freedom. That was really interesting. Fun, I like the word fun.
Yep, fun, absolutely. Before the Elisa said she can't find the answers of the mock exams, but there are the answers in the folders. You've got to download everything when you download from the website. Absolutely, yes, yeah.
Okay, so
for your wonderful feedback, everybody. Thank you.
because I was just talking there, did you catch any questions that we could answer while we're going on there?
Yeah, somebody asked if we're going to send a recording of the webinar. This is important.
Well, this is something that I'll be mentioning as soon as we finish the question and answers, but I'll answer that immediately. Yes, you'll be getting a follow-up thank you email, and there will be the link to the Joanna's presentation in this event. So yes, you'll find everything there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Someone's asked me a question there. Hold on, because I've gone past it now. How long to prepare for a C1? Well, it just depends. It just depends what level they are when they start. I always see everyone. I always say everyone learns at different. Everyone's different. Every learner, and but obviously, I mean, if they're B2, it does take at least a year to get from B2 to C1. Don't you agree, Giuseppe?
I totally agree. Totally agree with that. Casimir, there's a question also for you guys. I would like to buy the book. If you jump in there, because
Okay.
I can't help on that one. I think
Okay,
I think the person's asking about the language hub, I guess.
I'll put our email addresses here so that you can reach out.
Thank you so
For
much.
both mine and Casimir's.
Thank you. Great.
Giuseppe, somebody's going to win the book, though.
Yeah. As soon as I'll tell you what. Let me get this information out, because I've probably answered some of the questions already. So important information, lovely teachers. Okay. First of all, in the next few days, please keep an eye on your email, because we'll be sending you a follow-up email, and in that email you'll be getting the recording, as I just mentioned, and to every single participant of this webinar, there will also be a certificate of participation, of attendance. And also, I think very interesting, thank you to Macmillan Education. There will be a copy of the Language Hub mapping to LanguageCert International ESOL C1 exam. So you'll be getting the mapping that can help you prepare students for the C1, etc. I'd like to also add, I didn't mention that before, we have test centers all around Italy, and on our website you can find them. So if you're looking for someone locally to support you for the administration exams, for training, etc., we have test centers all over Italy. As Paola, would you like to mention something about the website? I think it's really important. We have all the information you need on the website, from webinars to practice material, as Joanna mentioned.
Yes, just like as Joanna mentioned, in the website, there's a practice paper section where you can download all the exams from A1 to C2 level. So this is really important. Remember that LanguageCert has exactly the same format, whether you take the exam in the paper-based format, online or computer-based. It's always the same paper, always the same tasks. Of course, they're different, but I mean, but the format is the same. And it changes every session, like all serious exams should do.
You would get from C1 in a week.
Yeah, exactly. And in that same section where you download the practice paper, you can also download handbooks in which you, as teachers, might find a lot of useful information about how the tasks are organized, the pass rate, how the marking is carried out. So, a lot of the topics, how our exams are aligned to the CEFR. So a lot of very useful information. We're aware of the fact that LanguageCert is a very new exam because we only arrived in Italy in 2018. So, the fact that we're here today with Joanna and Romina and Casimir, we're really, really proud of that. But yes, read about us, because our exams are really interesting, and you may want to offer them to some of your students, really. Okay, so there's a lot of information for you on the website.
Paola, stay with us. There's a question I just saw now. When should students choose LanguageCert?
Well, this is one of our strengths. So thank you for this question. The thing about LanguageCert, so as I said, we have 3 formats. So if you want the traditional way, you can actually contact one of our test centers. You will still find, again, you will find their names on our website. So we have traditional test centers. And from them, you can buy online, you can buy computer-based or paper-based. Or if you're more adventurous, you can buy from our website directly. Okay, we have a B2C website, and you can buy directly from the website. Of course, if you contact our partners, they will be able to give you more information and guide you towards the right exam. But we have and the thing is, you can take, if you book online, if you book through a partner, you can take the exam within the same day, on the same day. LanguaCert allows a candidate to take an exam technically 4 hours after they have created their account. So, and then after you've taken the exam, you will get your results in 3 business days. That means if you take your exam on a Sunday, because you're free, you will get your results on a Wednesday. So that's pretty amazing, we think.
That's brilliant, Paula. Thank you so much. Question, Paula, is no, sorry, this is actually for Macmillan, Romina, for you, Casimir. There's actually a nice little compliment over there. Language Hub is a great series. In fact, the best series I've ever worked. Oh, wow, fantastic.
Well,
Thanks a lot, Joanna. That's good.
Thank you.
Is there any material for C2? Maybe this is Paula, maybe, or Casimir. C2. We have done B2 and C1 this webinar. They're asking, is there anything for C2?
I mean, you can download practice papers for C2 from our website. And we haven't planned a C2 webinar with Macmillan, but probably, Casimir, we will soon, won't we?
Sounds like a good idea.
I always find this a great thing, is that we lead to the next one. Last year in April, we opened this month of February, and now we talk about the next one. So C2, yes, why not? Joanna, let's go for it. No?
Let's go for C2, yeah. Did I pass it? I wonder. I'm joking.
Hey, everybody. I gotta go. I just want to say thank you for all the information you've shared. It's really, really useful. And so enjoy the last minutes of your meeting. I have to go, but thank you.
Just stay one more second, just one more second. The big news is for everyone participating, and probably you know this already, Giuseppe, because I think you participated also last week.
Yeah.
The name is, and the voice also. You will all get the chance to win a free LanguageCert International ESOL C1 written and spoken online exam voucher, plus from Macmillan, a textbook published by Macmillan Education. The first five subscribers will be the winners. So keep an eye on that email and action. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
You will receive an email. Thank you very much, Giuseppe. And thank you at this point.
Wait 1 minute. I did promise I would share the QR code. I did promise at the end, because they asked me again for the QR code.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there's your lovely QR code.
Yeah, because I went a bit quickly there. So there you go. That's all the language of agreeing, disagreeing, suggesting. Okay. All right.
I love that Volare song. That was beautiful, Joanna.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Writing Italian songs in English. It's great.
Never done that, so probably we'll start doing that. So, okay, so it is actually, our time is, it's 4 o'clock. It's 1 minute to 4, so we respected the timing.
Yep.
I'd like to thank our sponsors, LanguageCert and Macmillan Education, Paola, Casimir, and Romina. Thank you so much. Being very kind. I would love to thank Joanna for this lovely presentation. Great, both events were very successful. Thank you so much. I would love to thank all the people in the backstage, Anna and Raffaella, everyone in LanguageCert that worked and supported us. And above all, to all you lovely teachers that have to go back to your classes tomorrow, and I'm sure energized with new ideas. Thank you so much for everyone, and maybe see you in the next C2 one. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.